Have you ever felt like you're walking on eggshells around someone you love, where one wrong word or even just a glance could trigger icy silence or passive aggression, leaving you feeling guilty, but you have no idea why? If that sounds familiar, this video might be a massive eye-opener. Today, we're not talking about the loud, boastful egocentrics who are easy to spot. We are diving deep into the dark waters of covert narcissism. I promise that by the end of this video, you will have a crystal clear understanding of their tactics. You might recognize someone you know, and most importantly, you'll learn exactly how to protect yourself. Do you agree that quiet manipulators are more dangerous than obvious aggressors? Let me know by typing yes or no in the comments right now. Before we break down the specific signs, let's lay a solid foundation. What exactly is Narcissistic Personality Disorder, or NPD? In popular culture, we picture the narcissist as a self-obsessed hunk who can't step away from the mirror and constantly snaps selfies. But in clinical psychology, the reality is much more complex and darker. NPD is a serious cluster B personality disorder characterized by a pervasive pattern of grandiosity, an overwhelming need for admiration, and a profound lack of empathy for others. It's critical to understand the distinction between having narcissistic traits, which many people exhibit to some degree, and having a full-blown disorder that permeates and damages every aspect of a person's life and relationships. The primary myth we're debunking today is the idea that all narcissists are the same. You have the grandiose or overt narcissist, the loud, arrogant type we all recognize. And then there is their seemingly complete opposite, the covert or vulnerable narcissist. Instead of boasting, they complain. Instead of demanding, they subtly manipulate by playing the eternal victim. And it's this camouflage that makes them uniquely dangerous, because the poison you don't see is always the most effective. So the first, and arguably the most fundamental sign, is that grandiose sense of self-importance. But when it comes to the covert narcissist, this trait surfaces in a completely different way than it does for their overt counterpart. While the classic narcissist will openly brag about their accomplishments, whether real or fabricated, the covert narcissist demonstrates superiority through veiled hints, intense condescension, and a constant, pervasive feeling that they are undervalued. Imagine a colleague who never explicitly says, "I'm the best programmer in the department," but instead constantly sighs while reviewing your code, offering something like, "Yeah, for your level, that's not bad. I used to make those kinds of beginner mistakes too." Or picture a friend who responds to your news about a promotion with, "That's great. It's just a shame that in my field, everything is decided by connections, not true talent. Otherwise, I would have been at the top a long time ago." This is what we call covert grandiosity. They don't shout about their greatness. They force you to feel their superiority through your own ensuing feeling of inadequacy when you are around them. They cultivate an atmosphere where their talents, their suffering, and their intellect are portrayed as something special, something profoundly misunderstood by this primitive world. They might talk about how bored they are with ordinary people, or how superficial conversations drain them. This is a passive form of self-aggrandizement, and it works just as effectively. They don't place themselves directly on a pedestal. They simply emphasize how low the ceiling is for everyone else. Underlying this behavior is the same deep-seated conviction of their own exceptionalism and uniqueness. It's just served up with a side of disillusionment regarding a world incapable of recognizing their genius. A perfect illustration is the archetype of the unrecognized genius, sitting in the corner at a party, looking down upon the frivolous crowd, with their entire demeanor broadcasting just how far above all this triviality they truly are. The second characteristic, which is deeply connected to the first one, is the preoccupation with fantasies of unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, or finding the perfect, ideal love. For the grandiose narcissist, these fantasies are often voiced openly. He will tell you all about his future business empires, how he plans to conquer the world, or the kind of perfect, almost divine love he is searching for. The covert narcissist keeps these fantasies private, yet lives entirely within them. His internal reality is far more important and vivid than his actual life. This manifests as a profound detachment from reality. For example, he might stay in a low-paying job for years, but in his mind, he is a genius strategist simply waiting for the right moment for the world to witness his true power. He may neglect his real-life relationships because he is holding out for the perfect partner, a soulmate with whom he'll share a cosmic connection, and all current partners are just pale reflections of that ideal. You can notice this in the way he discusses the future. His plans are often vague and lack concrete details, yet they are full of high-flown rhetoric and grandeur. He won't say, "I'll take some marketing courses to get a promotion." He will say, "One day I will create something that fundamentally changes this entire industry." This fantasy world serves as a sanctuary from his own deep-seated insecurity and real-life failures. When life hits him hard, he doesn't analyze his mistakes. Instead, he retreats into an imaginary world where he has already triumphed. This also explains his inability to appreciate the simple pleasures of life. Your joy over a simple vacation will seem trivial and common to him compared to his mental journeys on a yacht through the Mediterranean. He lives inside a movie script where he is the main character and everyone else is just an extra who simply doesn't grasp the depth of his vision. A classic example is the type who despises all successful people, calling them upstarts and hacks, while he himself does nothing to achieve success, believing in his fantasies that success must simply come to him as a recognition of his inherent genius. The third defining trait is a profound and unshakable conviction of their own uniqueness and exceptionalism. The narcissist genuinely believes they are unlike everyone else, and that only equally special or high-status individuals are capable of truly understanding them. In the grandiose narcissist, this manifests as outright snobbery. They will brag relentlessly about knowing powerful people, attending exclusive, invite-only events, or owning extremely rare and expensive items. The covert or vulnerable narcissist demonstrates their uniqueness through suffering and exceptional difference. They frame themselves as a complex personality or someone with a uniquely delicate psyche. Their problems are never just simple problems, they are existential tragedies, far too profound for ordinary mortals to grasp. If you had a bad day at the office, they had a crippling battle against the corrupt system trying to break their spirit. If you broke up with a partner, they experienced the total collapse of a nuanced world built upon the finest, most delicate emotional fabric. They weaponize this perceived complexity and vulnerability, using it as a badge of honor, proof of their elitism. They might cultivate an aura of mystery, speaking in riddles or veiled hints about a profound inner life to which you naturally have no access. This superiority complex also shows up in their choice of hobbies and tastes. They will openly despise everything mainstream and popular, dismissing it as mass-market trash. Their favorite films, music, and books must always be underground, niche, or definitively not for everyone. In this way, they underscore their membership in a caste of chosen few, the only ones capable of truly appreciating real art. If you attempt to share their passion, they will likely treat the effort with condescension, subtly implying that you could never truly grasp its full depth. This unwavering belief in their own unique stature makes building an equal relationship with them impossible. They will always look down on you slightly, even if they mask it under a guise of manufactured humility or melancholy. Think of that person who responds to any problem you mention with, "Yes, that's understandable, but my situation is infinitely more complex." That, right there, is the essence of this trait. Let's dive into the fourth characteristic, the demand for excessive admiration. This is the fuel that runs the narcissist's engine, what is clinically known as narcissistic supply. The grandiose narcissist demands admiration openly. He expects compliments, praise, and applause. He will actively fish for compliments, often straight up asking, "So what do you think of my new project? Pretty brilliant, huh?" The covert narcissist operates more subtly, but his need for supply is just as intense. He gets his resource through sympathy, pity, and the recognition of his genius in suffering. He'll constantly talk about how hard his life is, how misunderstood he is, and how unfairly the world treats him. In this relationship, your primary role is to constantly comfort and support him, telling him how strong, talented, and special he is for managing these unbelievable hardships. He might even downplay his own achievements just to get you to argue otherwise. For instance, he might show you a drawing and say, "Oh, this? It's just some sloppy doodle, nothing special." This is a trap. The right response he's looking for is, "What are you talking about? This is brilliant. You are so incredibly talented. Why are you selling yourself short?" If you simply agree and say, "Yeah, not bad," you will cause a narcissistic injury, and he will make sure you pay for it later with cold vengeance. He can also get supply by playing the role of the wise mentor or guru. He'll offer unsolicited advice, preach, and then bask in your gratitude and the recognition of his superior authority. His need for admiration is truly insatiable. No matter how much support or praise you offer, it will never be enough. It's like a leaky bucket that can never be filled. As soon as the high from one dose of admiration wears off, he urgently needs another one. If he doesn't receive it, he falls into despair, becomes highly irritable, or starts devaluing you just to restore his fragile ego. Picture a friend who only ever calls you to complain about his life for hours on end, and then interrupts you the second you try to talk about yourself. The fifth sign is that pervasive feeling of inherent right, or what psychologists call simply entitlement. The narcissist genuinely believes the world owes them everything. They expect people to yield to them, demand VIP service, and insist that their every wish be fulfilled immediately and without question. Rules, laws, and social norms, those are for regular people, not for them. A grandiose narcissist will openly demand special treatment. They'll make a scene in a restaurant if their table isn't the best, or cut in line because they truly feel their time is more valuable than everyone else's. The covert narcissist, however, expresses this entitlement differently, through passive aggression and resentment. They won't yell, they will simply punish you with the silent treatment because you failed to anticipate their desire. For instance, maybe you agreed to go to the movies, but he secretly wanted to go to the park. He won't tell you directly, but he'll spend the entire evening sighing, wearing a sulky expression, and answering all your questions with a passive-aggressive, "I'm fine." He forces you to feel guilty for not reading his mind and failing to prioritize his unspoken wishes above your own. This sense of entitlement bleeds into every area of life. They believe they are owed your time, your energy, and your resources, often without offering anything in return. They might call you at 3 in the morning just to vent and be genuinely offended if you say you need to sleep. They might take your belongings or money without asking, justifying it by claiming there shouldn't be secrets between people who are close. What this really means is that your boundaries are meaningless. Their needs are always the priority. If you try to stand up for your boundaries, they perceive it as a personal attack and a betrayal. They will accuse you of being selfish, heartless, or claiming you don't love them. This is a powerful, manipulative tool designed to force you to constantly sacrifice your own interests for theirs, just to avoid their silent disapproval. Think of the partner who expects you to drop everything and rush to them the moment they declare they're in a bad mood, and then gets deeply resentful if you dare to have other plans. The sixth, and arguably one of the most damaging signs, is interpersonal exploitation. Simply put, the narcissist uses other people purely to achieve their own objectives. They don't see people as individuals with feelings and desires, but rather as functions, resources, or mere tools. The grandiose narcissist engages in this openly and cynically. They might openly state, "I'm only friends with them because their father has connections." They will flatter and charm you incessantly as long as they need something, but the moment they get what they want, they lose all interest and might even walk past you without acknowledging you. The covert narcissist, however, exploits people under the guise of friendship, love, or even offering help. They are masters at playing on your sense of guilt, duty, and compassion. They will frame the situation so that by assisting them, you are fulfilling a sacred responsibility or simply proving yourself to be a genuinely good person. For example, they might constantly ask to borrow money, using tales of misfortune to generate pity, yet they are never quick to pay it back. If you remind them of the debt, they will accuse you of being petty or greedy and say, "I thought we were friends. I guess a few dollars mean more to you than our relationship." They might use you as an emotional dumping ground, unloading all their negativity onto you. But when you need support, they will suddenly be too busy or simply invalidate your problems. In romantic relationships, exploitation reaches its peak. A partner is simply a source of supply for the narcissist: admiration, care, financial stability, or status. They will suck the life out of you until you are completely depleted. And once you become useless or exhausted, they will simply discard you and find a new source. They are incapable of genuine reciprocity. Any seemingly good deed they perform is not an act of kindness, it's an investment. They only do something for you if they expect to receive something much greater in return. This is a cold, calculated approach to human relationships, often hidden behind a mask of sensitivity or vulnerability. A classic example is the friend who only remembers you exist when they need help moving, need to borrow money, or want free professional advice. The seventh key trait, the very core of narcissism, is the profound lack of empathy. A narcissist is either incapable of or simply unwilling to acknowledge the feelings and needs of anyone else. He cannot put himself in your shoes or see the world through your eyes, your tears, your pain, your joy. To him, these are just abstract concepts or, worse yet, nothing more than an annoying inconvenience. The grandiose narcissist may openly flaunt their indifference. They might laugh at your misfortune, say cruel things without ever grasping how much they hurt you, or simply shut down your emotions completely. The covert narcissist, however, might mimic empathy. But this performance is always fake and serves only their own agenda. They might offer the right comforting words or even give you a hug, yet you will feel a profound sense of coldness and emptiness. Their sympathy is purely shallow. They might show concern just to position themselves as the good, understanding friend and collect a dose of validation. But the second the conversation stops revolving around them, their interest evaporates. For example, imagine you are telling him about a serious problem. For the first 5 minutes, he might nod and say, "That's terrible, I feel so sorry for you." Then he abruptly cuts you off and says, "Speaking of problems, let me tell you what happened to me yesterday." What follows is a monologue, often lasting an hour, about his own, far more significant suffering. He may even use the vulnerabilities and weaknesses you shared with him in a moment of trust against you in the future. This profound absence of empathy allows them to commit acts of incredible cruelty, which they themselves do not register as cruel at all. He genuinely doesn't understand why you take offense at his constructive criticism, which is actually just a veiled insult. He doesn't get why you'd be upset over his flirting with others, claiming he was just being friendly. This emotional deafness is one of their most dangerous traits, as it makes any attempt to reach them to explain your feelings utterly futile. You are essentially speaking to an emotional wall. A perfect illustration: the person forgets their partner's birthday, and when the partner gets upset, the narcissist replies, "Why are you making such a fuss over small things? I had more important matters to deal with." The eighth characteristic is the narcissist's double-edged relationship with envy. They are either perpetually envious of others or absolutely certain that everyone is envious of them. In reality, these two states are closely related, stemming from their constant need to compare themselves to everyone around them. Narcissistic envy isn't just wishing they had what someone else possesses. It's a toxic, all-consuming feeling that compels them to despise the object of their envy and often wish for its destruction. They envy your success, your talents, your healthy relationships, and even your inner peace. If you achieve something, they will never be genuinely happy for you. Their automatic reaction will be either outright devaluation or an attempt to pull the focus immediately back onto themselves. For example, let's say you buy a new car, they might respond, "Nice." Though that color isn't very practical and that model is actually already outdated, I, on the other hand, I'm looking at a completely different class of vehicle. They simply cannot acknowledge your achievement because doing so undermines their own shaky sense of superiority. They might immediately start competing with you in that successful area just to prove that they are better. The covert narcissist especially will express this envy through passive aggression or constant complaints. They'll say things like, well, of course it's easy for you, you have support. I, however, have to achieve everything entirely on my own, which is why things are so much harder for me. The flip side of this coin is their deep-seated conviction that everyone around them is envious of them. This is pure projection of their own feelings. They attribute their personal envy to others. They explain away any criticism, disagreement, or failure by claiming they are simply being envied. If their project failed, it's because jealous rivals sabotaged it. If a partner left them, it's because the partner couldn't handle their success and sheer talent. This belief system shields their fragile ego from confronting reality. It allows them to avoid taking responsibility for their failures and maintain the illusion of their own grandeur. In the narcissist's world, there is no room for healthy competition or genuine happiness for others. There is only a rigid hierarchy where they must stand at the top, and envy, both directed at them and radiating from them, is the primary currency of this entire system. The ninth sign is a display of arrogance and a truly superior, haughty attitude. This stems directly from their deep-seated sense of superiority and entitlement. The narcissist looks down on the world, and this manifests clearly in their communication style, their gestures, and their very demeanor. The grandiose narcissist will be overtly and aggressively arrogant. They interrupt constantly, lecture you, adopt a condescending tone, drop sarcastic comments, and, yes, they will roll their eyes while you're speaking. They treat service staff, waiters, cab drivers, store clerks like second-class citizens, often being rude and excessively demanding. The covert narcissist, however, expresses this arrogance in much more subtle ways. This might involve a patronizing smile when you share good news or celebrate an achievement. They might talk to you as if you were an irrational child, patiently explaining things that are painfully obvious. They often employ intellectual snobbery, dropping complicated terminology just to flaunt their mental superiority and make you feel intellectually inferior. Their arrogance is frequently masked as honesty or being direct. They'll say something incredibly hurtful and then tack on, "Well, I just tell it like it is. I don't believe in being fake." In reality, it's just a cheap way to tear you down and elevate themselves at your expense. They might ignore you completely in a group setting, pretending not to notice you, or answer your questions monosyllabically to signal disinterest. This is a form of passive arrogance. They won't engage in a debate. Instead, they simply convey that your opinion is so worthless it doesn't even warrant discussion. This arrogance, ultimately, is a defense mechanism. Deep down, the narcissist feels worthless and profoundly insecure. By cultivating an aura of superiority and looking down on everyone else, they try to compensate for their inner emptiness. They construct a fortress of haughtiness so that no one can catch a glimpse of their true, frightened self. That is why any attempt to put them in their place or point out their arrogance will be met with ferocious resistance. You are striking at the very foundation of their personality, the facade they have meticulously built their entire lives. Think back to a time when someone friendly offered you advice that was actually thinly veiled criticism of your lifestyle, appearance, or personal choices. The 10th trait, and this is absolutely crucial for grasping the entire narcissistic dynamic, is the profoundly fragile ego that lies hidden beneath a rigid facade of confidence, or sometimes even feigned suffering. The complex web of defense mechanisms we've described, the grandiosity, the arrogance, the elaborate fantasies, is fundamentally a structure built on sand. That shaky foundation is a deep, agonizing sense of shame, inadequacy, and worthlessness, a feeling the narcissist harbors but will never admit even to themselves. They live in desperate fear of criticism, judgment, and rejection. Any remark, no matter how minor, or even a simple disagreement, isn't processed as objective feedback. It's immediately perceived as a total, existential attack on their entire identity. This phenomenon is known as narcissistic injury. The resulting counter-reaction is narcissistic rage. This rage isn't always overt aggression, shouting, or direct accusations, which is more typical of the grandiose type. For the covert narcissist, the rage is often passive. They will punish you with the chilling, icy silence known as the silent treatment, which can last for days or weeks. They'll sabotage your efforts, conveniently forget your requests, or subtly spread rumors and gossip behind your back. They will make you pay dearly for the perceived pain you caused them, simply because you dared to question their supposed perfection. This inherent fragility is exactly what fuels their pathological need for control. They must control everything and everyone around them to minimize the risk of suffering another narcissistic injury. This control extends to your opinions, your feelings, and your behavior. They attempt to isolate you from friends and family to ensure they remain the single, defining source of your reality. Understanding this internal fragility is vital, but it must not be mistaken for a license to grant excessive sympathy that keeps you trapped in a destructive relationship. Yes, their behavior is rooted in deep-seated pain, often stemming from childhood trauma. However, they are an adult, responsible for their actions. Their pain does not give them the right to destroy your life. Illustration. Think of a person who, after receiving even minor criticism at work, either sinks into a multi-day depressive episode or immediately begins plotting elaborate schemes against the person who dared to offer the critique. Let's move on to specific manipulation tactics. The first one we'll discuss is gaslighting. This is one of the most insidious and destructive forms of psychological abuse. The term comes from the play Gaslight, in which a husband deliberately attempts to drive his wife insane by making her doubt her own perception of reality. The narcissistic gaslighter does exactly the same thing. Their goal is to systematically erode your self-confidence, your memory, your feelings, and your sanity, all to gain complete control over you. How does this play out in real life? They will deny obvious facts. You distinctly remember them promising to do something. When you bring it up, they look at you with genuine astonishment and say, "I never said that. You must have imagined it. You're making things up." They will deliver this denial with such conviction and persistence that you genuinely start to doubt your own memory. They will invalidate your feelings. You might say, "I felt hurt when you said that." They respond, "You're too sensitive. You have no sense of humor. You take everything too personally." They aren't just disagreeing with you, they are denying your right to those feelings entirely, making your reaction seem inappropriate or unstable. They will project their own actions onto you. For instance, if they are cheating, they will constantly accuse you of infidelity, throw jealousy fits, and check your phone. This forces you to constantly defend yourself and diverts attention away from their own behavior. Over time, systematic gaslighting causes the victim to stop trusting themselves. They begin to think, "Am I actually going crazy? Did I really remember that incorrectly? Am I truly overreacting to everything?" You lose your footing, your grip on your own reality, and become completely dependent on the reality the manipulator forces upon you. This allows them to do virtually anything they want because you no longer trust the instincts that are screaming warnings at you. A perfect illustration: your partner breaks your favorite mug, then insists that you were the one who put it too close to the edge of the table, and besides, it already had a crack anyway. The next tactic, and usually the first phase of a relationship with a narcissist, is known as love bombing. During this initial stage, the narcissist transforms into the dream partner you've always imagined. He will shower you with endless compliments, gifts, and undivided attention. He'll tell you exactly what you've always longed to hear. "You are my soulmate. I've never loved anyone like this before. We were meant to be." He expertly mirrors your interests, hobbies, and core values. Do you love indie films? He'll suddenly reveal himself to be a dedicated connoisseur. Are you dreaming of a trip to Japan? He'll quickly assure you that it's his biggest dream as well. He manufactures an illusion of perfect compatibility, a cosmic connection, This phase is often incredibly intense and utterly dizzying. He will text and call you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, demand all of your time, and rapidly start discussing a future together, talking marriage and children within weeks. You might genuinely feel like you've finally met your destiny. But this isn't love, it's a cold, calculated takeover. The goal of love bombing is to quickly bond you to him, hook you on the intense drug of his attention and adoration, and forge a powerful emotional dependency. He hardwires a potent connection in your brain. He equals happiness. He does this so that, blinded by this perfect image, you overlook the initial red flags. He knows this perfect facade is unsustainable, which is why he must reel you deep into his web as fast as possible. Later, when he starts revealing his true self, the coldness, the cruelty, the devaluation, you won't be able to believe it. You will cling to the memory of that beautiful initial period, thinking, no, he's not like that. He's a good person, he's just going through a tough time. I just need to try harder, and he'll be the person I met at the beginning. You'll hold on to that illusion, forgiving everything in the desperate hope of reclaiming the fairy tale. Love bombing is merely the anesthesia before the extremely painful surgery of identity destruction. The inevitable next stage following the intense period of love bombing is devaluation. Once the narcissist is sure they have you hooked, that you're deeply in love and dependent, the mask of the perfect partner starts to slip. The fairy tale ends and the harsh reality begins. Devaluation is the calculated, systematic destruction of your self-worth. Everything they admired about you in the beginning now becomes the primary target of criticism and ridicule. Were you the smartest person they knew? Now they tell you that you don't understand anything about life. Were you the most beautiful? Now they constantly point out your physical flaws. Did they rave about your sense of humor? Now they dismiss your jokes as foolish or immature. Devaluation can be direct, taking the form of outright insults and harsh criticism. But with covert narcissists, it's often subtle and disguised. It manifests as constant friendly teasing, sarcasm, and passive-aggressive remarks that are immediately presented as a joke. If you get upset, they immediately hit you with, "Can't you take a joke?" This stage also includes comparing you unfavorably to others. They might say, well, my ex used to make borscht much better, or look how much weight Maria has lost, good for her. It involves ignoring your accomplishments or minimizing their significance. You get a big promotion and their reaction is, oh well, they give promotions to everyone in your company. The entire goal of devaluation is to make you feel worthless, unattractive, stupid, and incompetent. Why do they need this? First, to build themselves up at your expense. By humiliating you, they elevate themselves in their own eyes. Second, to tighten their control over you. The lower your self-esteem sinks, the more dependent you become on their opinion, and approval they will never give you in the way they did before. You become trapped in a vicious cycle. They devalue you, you feel terrible, you try harder to be better and win back their initial affection, but the harder you try, the more they devalue you. This stage can last for years, slowly but surely eroding your identity and turning you into an insecure, anxious shadow of your former self. It's like a slow poison that you are forced to consume every single day. Once the narcissist has completely drained you, when you are utterly exhausted, emotionally and mentally, and you can no longer provide the narcissistic supply he craves, the final act of the drama begins, the discard. The narcissist abandons you, but he doesn't leave like normal people do. His exit is sudden, brutal, and often comes without warning or explanation. Yesterday, he might have been professing his eternal love, and today he simply vanishes, blocking you on all social media and ignoring your calls. Alternatively, he might manufacture a grand scandal out of thin air, accuse you of every imaginable offense, and walk away, successfully painting himself as the innocent victim and you as the monster. The purpose of the discard isn't merely to end the relationship. The goal is to utterly destroy you, inflicting the maximum amount of pain and humiliation possible. He wants to leave you shattered and broken, convinced that you are entirely to blame and that you were never good enough. Often, by the time the discard happens, the narcissist already has a new source of supply lined up. He never leaves for nothing. He finds your replacement beforehand and initiates the love-bombing phase with them while you are still together. And he won't hesitate to make sure you know about it, perhaps by posting happy photos with his new flame just a week after your breakup, ensuring maximum additional pain. For the victim, the discard is a profound shock. You simply cannot fathom how someone who swore eternal love could act this way. You look for reasons within yourself, analyzing every step you took, desperately trying to figure out what you did wrong. But the truth is, you did nothing wrong. You simply ran out of supply. The battery died, and he tossed it out to put in a new one. This is the most cynical and inhuman display of his complete lack of empathy. To him, you were never a person, you were an object. And old, broken objects are not handled with care. They are simply thrown onto the scrap heap. For illustration, a partner who, after 10 years of marriage, packs his bags one day and leaves a 3-word note, or simply stops coming home entirely. Don't assume that the discard phase is always the end. When a narcissist realizes that their new source of supply isn't as good as you were, or when they simply get bored, they might try to come back. This process is called hoovering. Just like a vacuum cleaner, the narcissist attempts to suck you back into the toxic relationship. Hoovering methods vary wildly. It could be a sudden, late-night text message saying, "I miss you." It might be an accidental, like on a years-old photo of yours. They might start telling mutual friends how much they regret the breakup and how deeply they love you. They could send you flowers for your birthday or wish you a happy holiday, acting as if nothing ever happened. They might try to guilt-trip you, sharing sob stories about how miserable they are without you, how sick they are, or the overwhelming problems they face. Or they might switch back into full love-bombing mode, promising they've changed, they've realized everything, and that things will be different now. They will say exactly what you desperately want to hear. This is a crucial and dangerous moment. If you are still emotionally attached, if you haven't fully recovered from the pain, the temptation to believe them is huge. You want to believe that the perfect person from the beginning of the relationship has returned. You might think, oh, what if they really have changed? Maybe I should give them just one more chance. But you must understand this. Narcissists do not change. This isn't genuine remorse. This isn't love. It is simply an attempt to reclaim a comfortable, convenient source of supply. As soon as you give in and return, the cycle, love bombing, devaluation, and discard will begin again. And with every new rotation, the cycle speeds up and becomes exponentially more destructive. The only way to shield yourself from hoovering is complete and total no contact. Block them on all social media platforms, on your phone, and avoid shared social circles. Any loophole you leave open will be exploited, allowing them to creep back into your life and continue the destruction. To truly grasp narcissistic behavior, you need to understand the core concept of narcissistic supply. This is far more than just attention or admiration in the conventional sense. It's the lifeblood, the essential energy a narcissist extracts from the reactions of other people. Without this supply, the narcissist feels hollow, worthless. He literally ceases to exist in a psychological sense. His inner self is so fragile and unstable that he constantly requires external validation to confirm his significance. Narcissistic supply generally comes in two forms. Primary supply consists of reactions that directly fuel his grandiosity: praise, compliments, adoration, submission, and worship. This is what he often receives during the love-bombing stage. But there is also secondary supply, which is equally vital. This is any intense emotional reaction, including negative ones. Your tears, your anger, your pain, your suffering, and your jealousy, all of this serves as supply for him. When you scream at him in response to his provocation, you are confirming his power over you. You are showing him he can manipulate your emotions. For him, this too is validation of his importance. This is exactly why narcissists so often manufacture drama out of thin air. They crave your reaction, any reaction, positive or negative, it hardly matters. The worst fear for a narcissist is indifference. When you stop reacting to him, you are cutting off his oxygen supply. You are starving him of his resource. This is precisely why the grey rock strategy, where you communicate with him as dryly, unemotionally, and factually as possible, is one of the most effective defensive measures. To a narcissist, people are nothing more than potential sources of this supply. He classifies individuals based on how much and what quality of supply they can offer him. As soon as one source dries up, he immediately moves on to find a new one. He acts like an emotional vampire, perpetually needing someone else's vital energy just to maintain the illusion of his own existence. A narcissist rarely operates alone. They have an entire army of helpers, both conscious and unconscious, whom psychologists refer to as flying monkeys. This term is borrowed from The Wizard of Oz, where the Wicked Witch dispatched winged monkeys to do her dirty work. Similarly, the narcissist uses these people to harass, discredit, and torment their victim. Who exactly can become a flying monkey? They might be mutual friends, relatives, or co-workers. Narcissists are masters of manipulation and image crafting. To the outside world, they often appear charming, kind, or deeply unfortunate. They preemptively prime their environment by sharing a distorted version of events, positioning themselves as the noble victim and you as the irrational aggressor. When you separate, the narcissist activates their army. Mutual friends may suddenly start avoiding you or looking at you with open judgment. They might call you and say things like, "How could you do that to such a good person? They are suffering so much because of you. You really need to give them another chance." They effectively become the narcissist's mouthpiece, broadcasting their messages and applying pressure directly onto you. Flying monkeys might spy on you, gathering intel about your life and relaying it back to the narcissist. They might also spread vicious rumors to ruin your reputation. The saddest part is that many of these people genuinely believe they are doing the right thing, that they are helping the poor, suffering narcissist. They never see the narcissist's true face because it was never shown to them. All they see is the charming facade. Dealing with flying monkeys can be incredibly painful, especially since these are often people you considered close friends. You feel betrayed and intensely isolated. It's vital to understand that arguing with them or trying to prove your innocence is futile. They have already been manipulated and are completely under the narcissist's influence. The only viable defense is to distance yourself from them as well, thereby protecting your own mental health. As we've discussed, narcissism generally comes in two primary forms, the grandiose or overt type and the covert or vulnerable type. Recognizing the fundamental differences between them is crucial for timely diagnosis and protection. The grandiose narcissist embodies the classic stereotype. He is loud, boastful, arrogant, and overwhelmingly confident. He openly demands attention and thrives on being the center of the room. This is the extrovert who uses charm and charisma to captivate an audience. He makes no attempt to hide his inherent sense of superiority and entitlement. He will freely talk about his achievements, demand special treatment, and become visibly angry if his demands aren't met. His aggression is usually overt. He will yell, demean, and threaten. This type is relatively easy to spot because his behavior is so blatantly obvious. The covert narcissist, however, is the complete opposite in terms of outward presentation. He is quiet, withdrawn, and highly introverted. He doesn't boast. Instead, he constantly complains or puts himself down. He doesn't demand attention. He manipulates others into giving it by playing the perpetual victim. His internal mantra is essentially, "Woe is me." He appears highly sensitive, fragile, or genuinely shy. But do not be fooled by this facade. Internally, he harbors the exact same grandiosity, the same intense need for admiration, and the same devastating lack of empathy. He simply achieves his goals using different tactics. His aggression is passive-aggressive, the icy silent treatment, subtle sabotage, deliberate ignoring, and exaggerated sulking or holding grudges. He can make you feel profoundly guilty without having to utter a single accusatory word. Covert narcissists are often far more dangerous than the grandiose type precisely because they are so difficult to identify. Their manipulations are subtle, insidious, and highly deceptive. You could spend years in a relationship with one, feeling perpetually miserable without understanding the source. You start to believe the problem is you, that you're not supportive enough, or that you are somehow hurting them, when, in reality, you are simply the victim of a skillful manipulator who hides their predatory nature behind a convincing mask of vulnerability. It is vital to understand that both types are equally toxic and destructive to those around them. The methods may differ, but the core essence is always the same. One of the defining characteristics of the covert narcissist is his masterful command of the victim role. He is perpetually suffering. It's always the world against him. His boss doesn't appreciate him, his friends betray him, and his partner just doesn't understand. He collects slights and injustices, real or imagined, and constantly parades them to everyone around him. This image of the eternal victim is an incredibly potent tool for manipulation. First, it immediately draws sympathy and a desire to help from others. You see this unfortunate person and instinctively want to protect, comfort, and support them. You start investing your energy, time, and resources desperate to rescue him. Second, the victim role completely absolves him of any responsibility for his actions. He is never, ever at fault. If he messes up a project at work, it's his colleagues who didn't assist him. If he cheats, it's his partner who didn't pay enough attention. If he yells at you, it's your fault because you pushed him to the limit. He is a master at shifting blame. Any attempt to hold him accountable is doomed to fail. He will immediately launch into a monologue about how hard he's had it, how everyone has wronged him since childhood, and you will ultimately end up feeling guilty for daring to criticize him. Third, this persona grants him moral superiority. He is the sufferer, the martyr, who stoically endures the slings and arrows of misfortune. Everyone else, by contrast, is cruel and insensitive. This allows him to look down on everyone else, even from the supposed position of the victim. Being around such a person is utterly exhausting. You constantly feel obligated to save him, but all your efforts crash against his deep-seated unwillingness to change anything. In reality, he doesn't need solutions to his problems. He needs the problems themselves because they supply the attention, the sympathy, and the narcissistic supply that he desperately requires. He actually derives pleasure from the very process of suffering and complaining. Passive aggression is the native tongue of the covert narcissist. They rarely engage in open confrontation because it doesn't fit their carefully cultivated image as a sensitive and vulnerable victim. Instead, they use indirect, veiled ways of expressing their anger and discontent, tactics designed to drive you crazy and make you doubt your own sanity. What forms does this passive aggression take? It is, first and foremost, the silent treatment. They stop talking to you, reply in monosyllables, and avoid eye contact. You walk on eggshells around them, desperately trying to figure out what you did wrong, while they relish your anxiety and their resulting power over you. Another common form is accidental forgetfulness and outright sabotage. They forget to follow through on an important request you made. They just happen to be late for that meeting you were looking forward to. They inadvertently ruin your favorite possession. They will always find an innocent explanation for it, but in reality, it is disguised revenge. This also includes backhanded compliments, or compliments with a twist. For example, "That dress really suits you. It does such a good job of hiding your weight," or "You handled that report so well. I honestly didn't expect that from you." Formally, it's a compliment, but essentially, it's a humiliation tactic. Then there's sarcasm and biting jokes that always target your greatest insecurities. If you take offense, they immediately accuse you of having no sense of humor. Procrastination is a key tool. They will constantly drag their feet and delay fulfilling promises made to you purely to emphasize how unimportant your needs are to them. Passive aggression is an incredibly draining form of psychological abuse primarily because it is so difficult to confront. If you try to call them out directly and ask, "Are you angry with me?" they will likely respond, "No, you must be imagining things, everything is fine." They deny their anger, making you feel paranoid. You are constantly on edge, trying to decipher their hidden signals, and this takes a severe toll on your nervous system. The workplace is the perfect hunting ground for a narcissist. It offers an endless supply of narcissistic supply, recognition, power, and, most importantly, the ability to manipulate others. A narcissistic boss is nothing short of a tyrant. They routinely steal credit for their subordinates' achievements, publicly humiliate them in meetings, and constantly pit employees against each other, forcing them to compete for their favor. They cultivate a toxic atmosphere of fear and distrust within the team. They demand unquestioning obedience and admiration, and any criticism or disagreement is instantly seen as mutiny and is punished severely. They often overload their favorites with work, only to later devalue their efforts. Conversely, they promote the most relentless flatterers, regardless of their actual professional competence. A narcissistic colleague is equally dangerous. They will plot, spread gossip, and actively undermine you to management just to look better by comparison. They might sabotage your work, perhaps accidentally, deleting a critical file or failing to pass along vital information. They constantly complain about management and other colleagues, drawing you into their games and manufacturing alliances. Yet, to upper management, they often appear to be the perfect employee, charming, proactive, and always willing to help. They are masters of impression management, meaning your complaints about them will likely not be taken seriously. You will simply be dismissed as envious or a troublemaker. Working alongside a narcissist is a source of continuous stress. You can never truly relax, always waiting for the inevitable betrayal or stab in the back. This leads directly to professional burnout, anxiety disorders, and depression. Your productivity plummets because all your energy is dedicated to fending off their manipulations and defending your boundaries. If you recognize a narcissist in your boss or colleague, the best, and often only viable, solution is to switch departments or even change jobs entirely. Attempting to reform or negotiate with them is a hopeless endeavor, a utopian fantasy that could ultimately cost you your career and your health. Perhaps the most tragic role a narcissist can assume is that of a parent. To the narcissistic parent, the child is not an autonomous individual with their own feelings, desires, and needs. Instead, they are merely an extension of the parent, a project, a function, or a tool designed solely to secure narcissistic supply. A narcissistic parent will either idealize or devalue the child, often cycling rapidly between these two extremes. One child may become the golden child, burdened with all the parent's unmet ambitions. This child must excel in everything: academics, sports, and music. Their successes are the parent's successes, used as bragging rights before others. But this love is strictly conditional. The child is loved not for who they are, but for what they achieve. Any failure, or any attempt to show individuality that doesn't fit the parent's script, is met with chilling coldness, rejection, and sharp devaluation. Another child in the family may be assigned the role of the scapegoat. This child is blamed for all the family's problems, constantly criticized, demeaned, and compared unfavorably to the golden child. They effectively become a container for the self-hatred and contempt the narcissist feels toward themselves. The narcissistic parent is fundamentally incapable of empathy. They are blind to the child's emotional needs and routinely violate personal boundaries, reading diaries and monitoring every step. They use the child as an emotional dumping ground, burdening them with adult problems. They may even experience intense jealousy towards the child's friends or romantic partners. Growing up in this atmosphere inflicts profound psychological trauma. The child fails to develop a healthy, cohesive sense of self. They learn to suppress their genuine feelings and needs solely to appease the parent. As adults, they are often plagued by chronic guilt, shame, and inadequacy. Tragically, these individuals frequently suffer from depression and anxiety disorders and tend to seek out relationships with other narcissists because this deeply destructive pattern feels familiar. It feels normal. The narcissist as a romantic partner is probably the most common and widely discussed topic in psychology today. Relationships with a narcissist always follow a predictable, cyclical pattern. It all kicks off with intense, dizzying love bombing. He seems absolutely perfect. He says and does everything you've ever dreamed of. He creates the illusion that you are two perfect pieces of a puzzle destined to be together. He rushes the pace, quickly moving in or even proposing marriage. His singular goal is to hook you as fast as possible. Then once you are completely smitten and dependent, the slow, agonizing process of devaluation begins. He starts picking apart your appearance, your intelligence, and your friends. He puts you through extreme emotional whiplash. One day, he is cold and distant. The next, he's loving and tender again. This keeps you constantly on edge, desperately trying to earn back his affection. He uses gaslighting to make you doubt your own sanity and reality. He flirts with others to spark your jealousy and validate his own desirability. He controls your finances, your time, and your social circle, slowly isolating you from the outside world. Sex with a narcissist is also a tool of manipulation. While it might be passionate and imaginative at first, over time it becomes cold, mechanical, or vanishes entirely. He may use the withholding of intimacy as punishment. You live in a permanent fog of fear, guilt, and false hope. You are terrified of making him angry. You feel guilty for his every bad mood. And you hold on to the hope that the wonderful person you first fell in love with will eventually return. The climax is the discard, a cruel and sudden breakup. But even after that, he may try to pull you back in with hoovering. A life shared with a narcissist is not a relationship. It's an emotional meat grinder. It drains you completely, devastating your self-esteem, health, and career. Exiting such a relationship is a long, painful process, requiring immense effort and often professional help. But it is the only way to save yourself and start living again. One of the strangest and most bewildering aspects of dealing with a narcissist is their communication style, which psychologists call word salad. This technique typically appears when you try to discuss a serious problem or attempt to hold them accountable. Instead of engaging in a constructive discussion, they unleash a torrent of rambling, illogical, and contradictory statements that have nothing to do with the original topic. They will jump from subject to subject, dredge up accusations from 10 years ago, quote philosophers, or deploy entirely irrelevant analogies. Their speech might be grammatically sound, but its underlying meaning is utterly non-existent. The goal of this word salad is simple: evade answering, confuse you, tie you up in knots, and drive you to complete exhaustion. You start the conversation with a clear, specific question, but a half hour later you can't even remember where you began, feeling utterly drained and questioning your own intelligence. You try to grab hold of one of their points, but they immediately pivot to the next. You attempt to guide the discussion back to the topic, only for them to accuse you of not listening. It truly feels like trying to catch an eel with your bare hands. At the end of this conversation, you are left with the distinct feeling that you lost, yet you don't even know what game you were playing. The narcissist walks away the winner. They successfully avoided your question, never admitted fault, and on top of that, they made you feel like an idiot. This is a highly effective tactic used to protect their fragile ego. They create a verbal smokescreen to hide their wrongdoing and their refusal to take any responsibility. If you notice that after every serious conversation with this person your head is pounding and you feel like your brain has been run through a blender, chances are extremely high that you have encountered a master of the word salad. Another classic narcissistic defense mechanism is projection. Projection is essentially when someone attributes their own unacceptable thoughts, feelings, motives, or character traits onto someone else. The narcissist cannot acknowledge any flaws within themselves because that would shatter their grandiose self-image. To avoid this, they essentially dump these undesirable traits out of their own consciousness and pin them onto others, most often their romantic partner. How does this play out? A narcissistic husband who is cheating will become pathologically jealous, accusing his wife of infidelity at every turn. A lying narcissist will constantly claim that everyone else is dishonest and that no one can be trusted. The lazy and irresponsible narcissist will criticize you for not doing enough around the house. And selfish narcissist will call you selfish the moment you decide to do something for yourself for the first time in ages. Projection is a highly insidious technique. First, it allows the narcissist to maintain their perfect image in their own eyes. They aren't the liar, or you are the liar. They aren't the selfish one. You are the selfish one. Second, it completely confuses you and forces you into a constant state of defense. You waste enormous amounts of energy trying to prove that you are not the person they describe. You start questioning yourself. Maybe I really am selfish? Third, it distracts attention away from the narcissist's actual behavior. While you are busy defending yourself against their false accusations, you fail to notice that they are the one actively doing exactly what they are accusing you of. You can recognize projection by its sheer intensity and irrationality. If someone is accusing you of something completely out of character for you and they do so with incredible passion and persistence, stop and ask yourself, is this person actually describing themselves right now? Often, to understand what the narcissist is truly doing and thinking, all you have to do is listen closely to what they are accusing you of. Trying to set personal boundaries with a narcissist is essentially declaring war. For a narcissist, the concept of boundaries simply doesn't exist. They don't see you as a separate person. They view you as an extension of themselves, their property. Therefore, any attempt you make to say no, to assert your right to personal time, your own opinion, or connections with other people is perceived by them as an act of aggression, betrayal, and a personal insult. So, what kind of reaction can you expect? First, there will be rage. They might start a huge fight, yell at you, and accuse you of being selfish and heartless. They'll deploy the classic line, "How could you do this to me after everything I've done for you?" Second, prepare for guilt manipulation. They will start laying on the pity, painting themselves as the hurt and aggrieved victim. You'll hear things like, "You're hurting me. I don't deserve this kind of treatment," or "I guess I mean nothing to you." They will make you feel like a cruel, heartless monster just for attempting to take care of your own needs. Third, expect total boundary violation. You could tell them 100 times not to do something, but they will continue to do it as if they never heard you. They will overtly disrespect your rules simply to prove who's in control. They may start punishing you for your audacity, using the silent treatment, emotional coldness, or cancelling shared plans. They will do everything in their power to make you realize setting boundaries is both painful and futile. Faced with such a volatile reaction, many people back down and allow the narcissist to continue violating their boundaries just to avoid conflict. But that is a dead end. Consistently and firmly upholding your boundaries, despite all their manipulation and tantrums, is the only way to save yourself in a relationship with a person like this. And if they absolutely refuse to respect your boundaries, that is a sure sign that it's time to end the relationship. Because a relationship without boundaries isn't a relationship at all, it's servitude. To understand why someone develops narcissistic traits or full-blown narcissistic personality disorder, we must look at their childhood. NPD does not appear out of nowhere. It is almost always rooted in deep childhood trauma and an overwhelming, pervasive sense of toxic shame. There are two major theories regarding the formation of NPD. The first is the cold childhood theory. The child grows up in an atmosphere of emotional coldness, rejection, constant criticism, and invalidation. Their true feelings and emotional needs are routinely ignored. Their parents' love is conditional, based only on achievement, good grades, winning sports competitions. The child internalizes the devastating message that their authentic, true self is unlovable and worthless. To survive in this environment and earn even a shred of affection, the child constructs a false, grandiose self, an ideal persona they believe will finally be loved. They bury their real, vulnerable self so deeply that they eventually forget it exists. Their entire adult life becomes a desperate attempt to maintain this facade and extract the admiration they were starved of in childhood. The second theory, conversely, relates to excessive praise and idealization. The parents instill the belief that the child is a genius, a prince, the very best, and completely exceptional. They are given license to do whatever they want, with no real boundaries or responsibilities. They are not taught empathy or respect for others. The child grows up with a firm conviction of their own exceptionalism and an unquestionable right to special treatment. But even here, the true self never develops. They are not loved for who they are, but for the idealized image their parents projected onto them. When they collide with the real world, where they are no longer treated as the center of the universe, they experience shock and a severe narcissistic injury. In both scenarios, the core of the problem is toxic shame, a deep-seated sense of being inherently flawed and defective. The entire narcissistic construct is merely a complex and maladaptive defense mechanism built to protect against this unbearable feeling. Victims of narcissistic abuse often wrestle with the same haunting questions. Why me? Why did I choose this partner? What's wrong with me? This is a crucial inquiry, and the answer often lies in your own past. We don't attract certain people into our lives randomly. More often than not, the people who fall into a narcissist's trap share specific personality traits or underlying vulnerabilities. Here are the three most common profiles. First, highly empathetic individuals. Empaths intuitively sense the pain of others and have a deep-seated desire to feel compassion and act as a rescuer. A covert narcissist wearing the mask of a victim is the perfect target for them. You see their suffering and feel compelled to help, believing you can heal them with your love. You pour your heart and soul into the relationship, often without realizing that they are draining your energy completely. Second, those with childhood trauma. Victims often grew up in families with narcissistic or emotionally neglectful parents. For them, a relationship model where love must be constantly earned, feelings are invalidated, and boundaries are violated feels familiar, even normal. Subconsciously, they seek a partner who recreates that painful childhood dynamic, hoping this time they can win the game and finally receive the love they were always missing. Third, individuals with low self-worth. We also see individuals with low self-esteem and weak personal boundaries. They distrust their own instincts and struggle to say no. The narcissist quickly identifies these vulnerabilities, realizing that such a person is easy to manipulate. During the love-bombing phase, the narcissist provides exactly what the victim craves, a profound sense of validation and self-worth. You become addicted to this validation. It feels like a drug, and you're willing to tolerate the subsequent devaluation just for another fix. It is vital to understand this. Falling for a narcissist is not your fault. The abuser is always responsible, not the victim. However, acknowledging the underlying vulnerabilities that made you a target for manipulation is the first and most crucial step toward healing and building healthy, fulfilling relationships in the future. Breaking free from a relationship with a narcissist is just the start of a long and challenging journey toward healing. Narcissistic abuse leaves deep emotional scars. You might be struggling with PTSD, depression, crippling anxiety, and panic attacks. Your self-esteem is shattered and trust, both in others and yourself, is non-existent. So, what's the path forward? The first and most crucial step is strict no contact. Block him everywhere, on your phone, across all messengers and social media platforms. Avoid places where you might run into him. Delete any photos or gifts that serve as a reminder of him. Any contact puts you at risk of falling back under his influence. If you share children and total separation is impossible, you must implement the grey rock method. Communicate strictly about co-parenting matters. Keep it short, dry, and purely factual, as if speaking to a stranger. Do not engage in arguments and never react to his provocations. Step 2 is education. Read books, watch videos, and consume everything you can find about narcissism. Understanding what happened, that it wasn't your fault but rather a standard manipulative script, brings immense relief. You stop blaming yourself and start seeing the situation clearly and objectively. Step 3 is working with a therapist who specializes in narcissistic abuse recovery. A specialist can help you process the trauma, rebuild your self-esteem, learn how to establish strong personal boundaries, and ultimately trust yourself again. Step 4 is radical self-care. Prioritize restoring your sleep and eating schedules. Exercise. Find hobbies that genuinely bring you joy. Reconnect with the friends and family the narcissist isolated you from. You need to relearn how to listen to your own needs and desires and how to love and respect yourself unconditionally. The path to healing takes time, and you will likely experience setbacks and regressions, but please know that you are not alone, and a full, happy life after the narcissist is absolutely possible. It's crucial to understand how narcissistic personality disorder differs from the other personalities in the infamous cluster B, borderline, antisocial, and histrionic personality disorders. While they share common ground like emotional instability, impulsivity, and relationship difficulties, their core motivations and internal landscapes are entirely distinct. Borderline personality disorder, or BPD, is frequently mistaken for narcissism, especially the covert type. Individuals with BPD also struggle with unstable self-esteem, are terrified of abandonment, and yes, they can be manipulative. But the key differentiator is empathy. The person with BPD is capable of genuine sympathy and remorse following an intense emotional outburst. Their manipulation stems from a desperate fear of abandonment, not a drive to dominate. A narcissist, however, lacks this capacity for true empathy. Next, we have antisocial personality disorder, or ASPD, often labeled sociopathy or psychopathy. Like NPD, this disorder is characterized by a complete lack of empathy and a pronounced tendency to exploit others. But while the narcissist's primary goal is constant admiration and validation of their grandiose self-image, the sociopath's aim is power, control, and often material gain or simple pleasure. A sociopath violates social norms and laws without a shred of conscience. A narcissist might also break rules, but they are generally far more obsessed with maintaining their public image and reputation. Finally, histrionic personality disorder, or HPD. These individuals, like narcissists, desperately crave attention. However, they are willing to secure that attention by any means necessary, even if it means looking silly, dramatic, or ridiculous. They are theatrical, overly expressive, and their emotions shift rapidly. The key difference is that the narcissist doesn't just want attention, they demand admiration. They would never risk looking embarrassing or humiliating. Accurate diagnosis is, of course, the job of professional psychiatrists. But for you, the non-expert, it's vital to understand one thing. The specific clinical label of the person who is systematically tearing you down is less important than what they are doing. What matters is recognizing the toxic behavior, protecting your boundaries, and, if necessary, walking away to safeguard your own mental and physical well-being. And that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of narcissism. We've analyzed 30 key aspects ranging from covert grandiosity and success fantasies to devastating tactics like gaslighting, love bombing, and the brutal discard phase. We've seen how the narcissist weaponizes other people, how they hide their extremely fragile self-esteem behind a veneer of arrogance, and how their childhood traumas shape them into an emotional predator. The most crucial and perhaps shocking takeaway from all this is simple. The narcissist is fundamentally incapable of genuine love or forming truly intimate relationships. To them, other people are merely functions, mirrors reflecting their supposed greatness, or batteries providing the supply they need to fuel their deep inner emptiness. Trying to change, save, or heal a narcissist with your love is a guaranteed path to self-destruction. They will not change because they genuinely do not believe anything is wrong with them. In their reality, the fault will always lie with you. Therefore, the only viable strategy is to recognize the danger and establish distance. Your mental health, your self-worth, and your life are invaluable. Never let anyone have the power to destroy them. Thank you for sticking with this long and often difficult video until the end. If you found this useful, please hit the like button and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss our next analyses. Now here is an important question for our community. Which of the described traits or tactics resonated the most with you and why? Share your story or your thoughts in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly what someone else needs to open their eyes and find the strength to leave a toxic relationship. Take care of yourselves.